Welcome back, Tran. We've completed Keyforge. Now we get a whole key. We've completed Specialization Fanatic. You can change your specialization at the Enchanted Wardrobe. Achievement unlocked, Becoming a Fanatic. Fanatics devote their yeah, we've seen the top one. As a fanatic, you'll be able to take additional avatar creatures with you on your journey and empower them and their ultimate spell jumps with potent magic. Fanatics also make use of God-spawn creatures and create powerful synergies between them and their avatar allies. When you switch to a class for the first time, it keeps your previous wardrobe and previous monster set. So we're going to switch to that bit, and our achievement earned Jack of All. I now have all the specializations. Let's take a look what those perks might be. Apostle, after your avatar's attack, your Godspawn have a percentage chance up to 10% to attack a random enemy. You can have up to 2 additional avatar creatures in your party for a total of 3. After your avatars are killed, they give up to 100% of their stats to your Godspawn. Your creature's ultimate spell gems have up to 100% more potency. After your Godspawn are killed, they are resurrected with 50% health and transform into their respective avatar. Okay. That sounds kind of interesting. So I could just like get a bunch of okay. my build, my play style up till now has really been careless about letting my monsters get resurrected. So this is something that you can leverage for amusing effects. At the start of battle, your Godspawn creatures gain their respective avatar's trait. At the start of battle, your avatars gain up to 3 random ultimate spell gems. Your avatars are resistant to debuffs. At the start of battle, your avatar's ultimate spell gems gain the generous property. After your Godspawn attack, they have up to 20% chance to cast their respective avatar's respective ultimate spell. Ultimate spell. After your avatars cast a spell, your Godspawn have up to a 10% chance to cast that spell as well. After your Godspawn casts a spell, they have up to a 20% chance to cast their respective avatar's ultimate spell. All avatars' ultimate spell gems have up to 3 additional charges. After your avatars have been dead for 7 turns, they are resurrected with 50% health. Ultimate spell gems cannot be sealed. Okay. So let's show you the next masterpiece. First, we're going to switch back to the class that the Goblet has me working on, the Evoker. And I want to show you what a current level 2000 creature is like. So the enemy is currently under 1900. And the reason why I want to show you what a level 2000 character is like is I'm going to show you how Regalis and Diabolic Horde, you can make monsters way more powerful than the monsters I currently have. So take a look at these stats. It's 310,000 health, 10,000 attack, 5,000 intelligence, 14,000 defense, and 5,000 speed. It's fairly standard for a level 2000 monster. The army that we are going to build will have stats in the millions. Now, I have spent a lot of time researching and then refining this build. So while I can make an army with about 6 million health and some stats to match that, I actually prefer having an army with about 3 million health and faster clear time. So don't mistake my lower health compared to other Diabolic builds as necessarily being weaker. Maybe it is, but because I'm only at Realm 245, I'm more concerned about a faster clear time than I am about having the highest stats possible. Maybe when I get further in, I will need higher stats. But right now, 2 million, 3 million health is plenty. So I'm deliberately sacrificing 3 million hit points to add that to offensive power. Kiichi's eyes light up fiercely with recognition upon your approach. What is she doing here? She must have escaped from Pakarnik's grasp. Again! With apparent lust for vengeance, Kiichi lunges forward and attacks. Again. See, I don't know why that Stay Dead is doing no damage on the first 2 hits, apparently. Maybe Okay, if we look at this from top to bottom, so we don't miss a thing. I have less spell charges. They are strong against life, so that might be my firebrand having 0 damage. They get rebirth. I have less intelligence. I do less indirect damage, which is battle from within and stay dead. I am always blighted. They will always defend. They have extra attack power. My gems get sealed after I cast anything. They have extra defense. They are fused, and there's a boss. Nowhere in there does it give them dodging or resist damage. Those are indeed realm properties, but not in this case. But it doesn't really matter. Just kill this guy. Now that we're back in base, I'm going to build my 3 million hit point army. Again, you can bring this up to easily 4 to 6 million, but I'm cutting out those extra millions because I'm sacrificing it for extra offense. Alright, we're going to dump everybody in just to make things easier to demonstrate what's going on. First off, we're going to combine our Angelic Voidlord because I really like the ability to be immune to damage. And we're going to combine that with the Unguided Psychic. Alright, so to bear in mind, Regalis' ability, any creatures of the same class, yeah, that's what the game calls elements, they share their primary or innate trait, the first trait that they have, so that'd be the Shadow Bulwark in this case. I will make all my characters the same class, and they will all get Shadow Bulwark, as well as any other trait that I merge. The way I planned out these fused parents is to maximize my stat growth. I like the skin color of this one, but the white eyes of this. We'll go ahead and go with this one for now. We have used the Unguided Psychic before to ramp up my Suicide Bombers, and the Angelic Voidlord we just used with the Golems. Alright, next up, we're going to use the Siege Automaton. I've liked Battle from Within ever since I bought that trait stone from the store, because it's been an incredible aid to me. We're going to combine that with the Sphinx Elder. Again, this results in a life-based creature. Not only does he do damage just by existing, but he will give my entire team 10% more attack, intelligence, defense, and speed for every life-based character. Slap that in there. As for the equipment, while it is important that I put the right traits on them, it hasn't seemed to matter too much who puts on what thing, so we're not going to worry about that at this moment. We're going to just fuse everybody right now. Next up, we're going to take a Forsaken Swamp Dweller and combine that with a Temperantius Sanctus. Now, we know what Darkness Surrounding does. It gives us more life, way more life, and this also multiplies against equipment. So it's not just 250% life, and then you add the helmet's 200% life. It multiplies against the helmet's life, which results in humongous bonuses. We are going to go with, I like this brown one, I like her eyes. We'll go with this. As for the Temperantius, that is going to be an important ability for bringing my speed up to insane amounts. Next up, we're going to combine our Regalis. We're going to combine that with the Omnipotent Deity. Now, I will point out the other builds I looked at did all use this as their Regalis merge. I don't know what the reasons they chose to do so was for, but I wanted to try something different than that. It only turns out that for me to maximize my stat growth for this attack-based build, I end up choosing the Omnipotent Deity for this one, for the attack-based team, because I want to maximize how many attributes I get per level. So we're gonna go with this pink one. I kind of like that color there. This results in a creature that didn't talk about it all. First off, we've got Brotha, which we've discussed, but Singularity is essential for this build. It doesn't work without it. This will allow all my health that I'm currently building up to become other stats. Alright, next we've got the Doom Pit Guard combined with the Ruby Paragon. Alright, so let's take a look and I'll explain. You'll see how both of their attack levels are very, very low. So I will give him a book that tells him to get health up and attack down, and that's a book of laziness. This will result in me getting the most stats for my buck. Because if I, for example, put a decrease on, say, defense, that will lower tremendously the amount of defense he's gaining per level. Because it's a percentage of his base stat as it grows. So this is a percentage of a smaller stat. In addition, his skill Rampart doesn't affect attack at all, but it does affect defense, health, and speed. Ruby Attunement, it says it doesn't stack, but I will say that if you have Ruby Attunement and the enemy has Ruby Attunement, it does stack in that way. We're gonna go ahead and merge these two. And our health has already been approaching extreme levels. It won't say it right now, because the modifiers do not take effect until you enter battle. But I will show you our stats once we finish merging. Next up, I'm going to combine the Colas Firebreath. This dude is essential for my fast clears. None of the other builds use this, and maybe it's because they are also fighting enemies that have millions of hit points. I don't know. Right now, I'm only on realm 246 at this point, and this was easy for this. This will help me clear out these realms faster, and I can catch up to other players. I'm going to combine that with the Apis Protector. I'm already immune to indirect damage. Now I will be resistant, but not immune to debuffs. Those are two different flags. Immune to debuffs means that none of them will stick to you. Resistant means that there will be many debuffs that you will suffer only half the penalty for. So for example, I can be silenced, but my spells will do half damage I can cast. I won't be unable to cast. I can be scorned, and I'll still be able to attack, but I'll do half damage. I can be frozen, but I can thaw twice as fast. Things like that. So we're gonna go ahead and combine that here. Alright, so this is an entire life squad. As for the Apis, it only affects him and anybody he's next to. So I may want to move him in the future. But right now, this is a high level. This will get me high levels of stats. I haven't quite worked out why it does it this way, but in this formation, I get considerable stat increase. If I start moving them around, my stats will actually start lowering. So this is the formation I've decided. Alright, let's go and start popping books in them. So for the first guy, actually I don't even know if they need books. Let's see here. You need a book. You need a book. You need a book. Okay, they all need books. So first I'll give Relax to number 1. An interesting thing is, it actually saves your cursor. I was on number 6 when I opened up the Relax book. It saves your cursor when you enter your item after having looked at your creatures. But once you use the book, it goes back to item slot 1, so be careful about that. We're gonna go ahead and read that for the Void Lord, and we're gonna also read another one for Regalis, so that she can lower her speed. All right, next we're gonna have Apathetic for the Automaton, Lazy for characters 3 and 5. Finally, Indifferent for the 6th character. Alright, hopefully I did that correct. So as we look at the down arrow, so first off, everybody should have health up. If you see here, everybody has health up, health up, health up. Now, down arrow will be whatever the lowest stat is for their base stat. So in this case, it's speed. It could be attack, but attack would be more useful in this case. Defense here, attack here, speed here, attack here, and intelligence here. Alright, so these stats are absolutely not impressive. I 100% get that. Hold on, wait until we get into battle. Okay, I've gone ahead and equipped them with relics and artifacts, as well as their spell gems. First off, let's just talk about their spell gems. Everybody has the exact same set of spell gems. I will enhance the properties later. But it's Righteous Storm, Stellar Flare, and Flourish. I just wanted something where they could have lots of casts. Because of my large damage abilities, I probably just need more casts rather than powerful casts. As for the artifacts, everybody pretty much has the same thing except for the trait. So Nature Transformation, Diabolic Fortitude, Hate and Other Triumphs, Master of Diabolic Horde, Diabolic Link, and Solace. Let's take a look at each one. Nature Transformation means that I can hit myself and I won't kill myself. Diabolic Fortitude gives me more health for every Horde member fighting on my side. None of these guys are Horde members though. Fate and Other Triumphs. Effects that activate when creatures die are ignored. This is kind of like the more expensive version of the Satyr that keeps people from reviving. This will allow me, for example, to ignore Salamanders, Wights, things like that. Master of Diabolic Horde. At the start of battle, your creature's races are changed to Diabolic Horde. Now we can use that first ability, Fortitude. Diabolic Link. At the start of battle, your Diabolic Horde share their maximum health with each other. In addition, your Diabolic Horde deals 50% less damage. Now, I understand that I will do half that amount of damage, but the amount of health I get is more than 100%. So my overall damage does actually increase. At the start of battle, your creatures gain 10% health for each non-ethereal life spell gem each of your creatures have equipped. Maximum of 3 spell gems per creature. This trait does not stack. That is why these guys all have gems. Now, I know I can use other things besides life. These actually fit the bill very nicely. I was looking for something with lots of charges, and these are it. Now, normally they would both have 15 charges, but because I'm an Evoker, they have an extra 6. Also, I have a card that gives me +1, so I guess an Evoker gives me 5. Anyways, these will do just fine. Like, I know I can give another color gem, but if you remember, I did deduce that it's actually you do more damage by having that extra property apply for damage. Alright, so now let's fight a god with this army, and you'll see exactly how their stats change. We'll do Lister because I don't know if the enemy will survive a hit. So your creatures are immune to damage. That's him. His creatures are immune to damage. All I can do is try to survive the onslaught until he is too tired to fight anymore. So if I pick this guy, I'll just basically be defending for a while, and that's okay. Because I feel like I would pretty much immediately kill these guys if we began the fight. It's like, what are you talking about, Tran? You're level 100. Well, you will be, and they're level 1500. Again, these stats are really nothing to write home about at the moment. But once we start combat, we will actually combine all those traits together to form an immensely powerful team. Boy, what are you doing in my bedroom? Look at the scrap, will ya? Let's get on with it then. Alright, see those stats? I'm gonna now hit a button to begin the battle. Bam, look at that. So I can't actually do any damage because they're just immune to me, so I just have to wait here. Let's inspect my team. So now I have 3 million hit points and roughly 700,000 attack. I could indeed raise that attack to the millions, but the thing is I actually do less damage. I would actually do less damage with that because I wouldn't have Division of Mortality. I would also be more vulnerable because I wouldn't have Shadow Bulwark on me. So I traded off some of my hit points and other stats in addition for some more valuable traits. So realistically, all I can really do is just defend, because I cannot hurt him at all. So let's see how much damage he can do. Oh, by the way, these are his stats at level 1500. So he has less hit points than me, far less attack, intelligence, and defense by a great deal. He has 12,000 attack, whereas I have 661,000 defense. So we're just gonna hold down defend and wait for the battle to end. Oh, and I did find out that these guys use your last instability realm that you've entered as far as how many guys are fused. So for example, I just entered a 5 realm, so all of these guys are fused. If I enter a 0 realm, when I fight the gods, they'll be 0 fusion. I typically do 4 fusion, or 4 instability realm, just because that fills up the goblet as fast as a 5. So I needed an enemy I could survive that would survive my first turn. If there is a cut, just rest assured that the battle played pretty much exactly what you've been seeing. I just edited it out to get to the end. I'd like to thank Siralim players Blue Quaker Alex, Lucky Ducky, The Chaz, and Arcades for sharing their builds online. The premise of this build. Boy, I'm getting tired of all this nonsense. It's about time I return for the evening. Good night. Alright, So let's go one-shot a boss. Wait for all the achievements to roll in. I should get 1 for defeating Lister 1 time, and I should get 2 for defeating him at difficulty 10. Next up, we'll try Yseros. After an enemy attacks, your creatures attack. After an enemy casts a spell, your creatures cast that spell.
Your eyes deceive you, Tran. Don't believe everything you see.
Alright, so I literally did 3 million damage just entering the battle. And every one of these guys can do that much, as long as the enemy's not immune or resistant to this. With my elemental strength ability, I should be doing that consistently. So that's why I had to bring in Lister, because if I went to Yseros first, I wouldn't have been able to inspect my team. Let's wait for the achievements to roll on in again. And we'll go ahead and go into the next row. As you can see here at the left side of the screen, it says enemy level 1954. We're going to go instability realm 5 because that's just how we roll. Alright, so our axe does a marvelous 0 damage, and they cast Mass Dispel to begin with. That's fine, I'm not too worried about it. And when he hits me, I only received 136 on his critical. I see that he chose to remove my extra traits. Good move on his part. But the other 5 characters are still full of traits. Including Battle from Within. So we take a look at my team. You can see here that this person at level 1 has 80,000 hit points, 21,000 attack, 18,000 intelligence, 21,000 defense, and 10,000 speed. With the next person, it's roughly the same, and so forth. Everybody's pretty much the same, except this guy who just got dispelled. Actually, his stats are roughly the same. Even though his temporary traits disappeared, his stats remained. So I guess it was too late for them. Let's go ahead and cast the spell. We'll use Righteous Storm. Enemies take a small amount of damage and lose a small amount of attack. That was one move. And then Battle from Within on my second character wiped him out. Go up to level 57. Now the enemy don't even stand a chance. If they had a moment of reprieve when I was at level 1, they will no longer be a match for me at level 57. Never seen a big room like this.
Do you have any idea how long you've been guarding these useless trinkets for? I'm bored out of my mind. Fight me!
2 million Battle from Within at level 60. And they all have Battle from Within. And my sheer attack and intelligence damage will take care of anybody who's immune to indirect. And there we go, 3 million this time.
Closer, traveler. Come closer and die.
This giant open space is not going to be conducive to trying to capture him. There we go, this kind of works. Goodbye.
If I had known your greed would someday cause you to commit such an act of treachery, I would have gladly given you a portion of my own wealth in order to preserve the life of such a happy-go-lucky creature. Shame on you.
I think there might have been here. I already donated to you. I was gonna donate you the resources I got from the treasure column. Oh no, a mimic! What will we do? Oh, nothing actually, he just dies. All 6 of the characters possess battle from within. I think that's everything. Let's go check out the... Actually, you know what? Let's grab this thing and hit the boss with it. Let's see if I can also do damage. Well, hello there, friend. Fancy seeing you here. Ian winks at you with his left eye, followed by his right, but not at the same time, of course. He continues to wink with each eye back and forth. Before long, you're mesmerized. Without warning, Ian lunges towards you with his hammer and aims directly at your head. Your creatures intercept the attack. Piece of cake. Now, I've heard this will get patched out for sure. What I've heard is that the Diabolic Horde is multiplying in ways it's not supposed to be, resulting in these phenomenal stats. This is the outro for this episode. Someone asked me if I could show the specialization wardrobe options that I've unlocked. So here we have the Animator, Tier 1, Astrologer, Tier 1, Blood Mage Alternate, Tier 1 through 3. Then we have the, I don't know if I'm saying this right, the Kabbalist Alternate in Tier 1, the Cleric Alternate, Tier 1 and Tier 2, the Defiler Alternate in Tier 1, Doombringer Tier 1, the Druid Alternate in Tier 1, the Evoker Alternate in Tier 1, the Fanatic Tier 1, the Grove Tender Tier 1, the Hell Knight Alternate in Tier 1, the Inquisitor Alternate in Tier 1, the Monks Alternates 1 and 2 Tier 1, the Necromancer Alternate Tier 1 and Tier 2, the Paladin Alternate and Tier 1, the Purgatorian Tier 1 and Tier 2, the Pyromancer Tier 1, the Reaver Alternate Tier 1 through Tier 3. Then we have the Rune Knight Tier 1, Sorcerer Alternate in Tier 1 through 2, the Spellweaver Tier 1, the Tribalist Alternate Tier 1 and 2, Trickster Alternate Tier 1 and 2, and the Warden, and that is all 25 specializations that I've unlocked. I think we've reached the end of what content I can produce for this playlist, so thank you very much for watching Tran with Siralim Ultimate. I'd like to thank everybody for their support during this series. I feel like this has been phenomenally successful for my channel, and I really appreciate everybody leaving me their comments and their likes. I hope that you've enjoyed the content I've provided for Siralim Ultimate. I'll catch you in the next series. Because players of Siralim Ultimate probably enjoy things such as the math and data behind the builds, the rest of this episode will be dedicated to explaining my thought processes behind how I get to this point. What you're looking at is the data I have collected based on the build posted by a level 44,000 player. This may have been the very first Regalis Diabolic build. This player does some things that the others didn't, such as the only person using Beyond Oblivion from the Lost God Spawn. This was likely so that the player could take advantage of Righteous Concession, which allows it and creatures adjacent to it to be resistant to debuffs. That means that you would never have to worry about being silenced at the beginning of a battle or anything like that. These are some of the observations that I made when analyzing these stats. Now, this team may have been built before the version I was playing, but for example, I felt that the channeling ability was not actually all that useful. Same thing for the treasure golem, but my resources are probably different than Blue Quaker Alex. Live to labor is an interesting idea. It is one that I've toyed with around, that you never have to worry about being faster than enemy. You can in fact try to make yourself slower than enemy on purpose in order to make them kill themselves. However, since it's 20% of your attack, while that's good, basing stats off of your health is much better. If you take a look at this player's stats, 20% of 500,000 would be 125,000 damage, whereas 15% of 5 million would be 750,000 damage. That's even more than the attack power he's got. He has to use Live to Labor because his character is actually much slower than the characters we're running. He uses Hate and Other Triumphs. I think he's the only player that is using this, and I think this keeps enemies from reviving. Since I'm about clearing faster, I make sure to put this on my team. Next up, we have Lucky Ducky. You can see here that there's a pattern of what I'm doing. I'm analyzing every single one of their builds, looking at their stats, what I can bring out from them, and seeing what each one does a little bit differently, and taking what I can use and leaving behind what I can't. Their needs are going to be different than mine. So for example, Lucky Ducky is the only one to use Bloodline, and that is something that I agree with as a very potentially powerful ability. Rather than continuing to ramp up our health, it might be useful to make sure that our characters are always strong against the enemy class. Maybe not. If we can pump out another 30 million on top of, say, a base 1 million, that would be better. But at this point, we're starting to exhaust all the massive modifiers. Here, he uses Pharaoh's Boon, which run into enemies and try to compare their stats. 5% less wasn't that significant, but again, I am facing much lower level enemies than they are. For blending in, Blue Quaker Alex and Lucky Ducky are the only players that didn't try to make the entire life squad. Lucky Ducky does try to work with that by making their last 3 characters blend in with the Cockatrice's ability, where they all become life. For some reason, he's using Spook with this, which I can understand that if you're working with invisibility. I'm not entirely sure how often you're actually encountering this. Perhaps this is just a pet peeve of his. I haven't had that many problems with invisibility yet, but maybe he's using this to defeat one of the gods. Finally, he's using Kindness, which adds 15% of extra stats to others, but I have compared the value of this stat, which we'll see in a later spreadsheet. For user the Chaz, there's a few things that we start really looking at. First off, the Chaz uses Battle from Within, and while that's been a long-time favorite, he uses it to great effect here because we have intentionally ramped our health up to absurd amounts. So whereas our health, here he uses the Gravebane White in order to do death-dealing damage. That's fine. It has its use, but I wanted to eventually develop a build that worked with Hate and Other Triumphs. So I wanted to. You may have noticed that I've been slowly steering my team away from suicide builds on purpose because I want to make the enemy go away faster. So if I can nullify anybody's death effects, that is to my advantage. He uses Celestial Fortitude, and he's the only player that has chosen to use that. It's a very defensive ability. I haven't yet run into an enemy that needs it, but as I mentioned in the other spreadsheet analyses, these other players are likely facing much more dangerous opponents than I am. He's also using Righteous Concession, which we have seen before, and is a good trait for a life creature. Finally, he's the only one that's using Katarina's Asylum, which is when your creatures take damage, they take 15% more damage but gain invisible. I'm not entirely sure how valuable that is, so again, this may be something that he has found particularly annoying and he wants to resolve by becoming invisible. Now, at this point, I'm also starting to try to log damage and try to see how offensive these teams are built around, because I don't want to spend 30 minutes on a single fight. We can see here that before health stats are inflated, we're doing 110,000 damage as critical, and then once those health stats are raised, we bring that up to 373,000 as critical. Next up, we have Arcates. As a whole, I think his team was the most efficient, at least as far as I was looking for. Now, I've left a comment on each one of these traits, which indicates how often they appear in the other builds. So for example, Shadow Bulwark appears in 3 of the builds. Solace appears in all 4 of the builds. And by the way, that is actually more than a 30% increase per character, because again, we are multiplying each person's health with each other's. Then Diabolic Link appears in all 4. Darkness Surrounding appears in all 4 as a shared innate trait, which shows just how important it is. Ruby Attunement does appear in all 4. Diabolic Fortitude also appears in all 4. So we can kind of see here which ones are the most common to appear in these 4 different Diabolic Regalis builds. Rampart appears in all 4 as a shared trait. Pharaoh's Boon is used in 2 of the builds. Imbue is used only in this one. Big Boned is used in 2 of these as offensive builds as a shared trait. Temperance is used in 3 of these as a fused trait, which gives both the light class and the ability to move faster. This is the difference between Blue Quaker Alex and the other builds. Diabolic Revolution adds an extra 3 Diabolic Hordes to your army as far as traits are concerned. Battle from Within is used in 3 of these total, but this one is the only one that uses it as an innate trait. Carnogenesis is one we've used before, but I don't see it playing out well here, at least not with the traits themselves. Perhaps the player is using spells for this. Nature Transformation is one that I've definitely incorporated into my army. This is kind of a requirement. Many of the players fused Singularity into Regalis. And finally, you do require Master of Diabolic Horde, and it must be an equipment item. Those were the 4 builds that I based this idea off of. Once I collected all that information, comparing the 4 builds together and looking for the fine-tuning aspects of each one, the personal differences that each build possesses, I took all the traits that they used and slapped them down in a spreadsheet, then compared the values that it gave as far as health is concerned. So for example, with the Diabolic Horde Mastery material, that ramps us up by 2,000%. With the maximum health improvement, that ramps us up to by another 1,053.07%. I kind of guessed a number on this, but I estimated roughly 450% offensive damage increase for the unguided psychics always deal damage. Darkness Surrounding I calculated as 250 and 85% for the hit point growth. So Rampart, even though this is a 65% increase, it results in a roughly 174% team-wide bonus. While it is 65% for 2 characters, what it sounds like it's doing, for the overall health growth of the team, it raised the team's hit points by 174%. That's what that means. Temperance raises our power by about 158%. Ruby Attunement is 100.32, very accurate on that one. Solace gets us 92% increase in stats. So this is how I rated all of these things and decided which ones I could get rid of. So for example, Imbue was only used in 1 build, and it raised our overall power by about 10.5%. Diabolic Horde, while it sounds like it should be awesome, giving our party 3 more Diabolic Horde, it only raised our power by about 19%. So that was easy, we could easily toss that. Now, in the future, all of these numbers may change, like this one may go up in value, and these may go down in value. But for right now, in the version I have, these were the values I was walking away with. These are the stats each of these characters have, so that I could know which ones to merge. Because for me, I also want to maximize the attributes that each one is growing by. This column here indicates if I can have more than one of this trait and make it useful. And then this one indicates what my first plan was. So for example, if it's the primary trait, if it's a fused trait, or if it's an artifact. Down here is just some random notes for me to try to get an idea of what I wanted to start with. Then we have our first generation of the build. It pretty much follows the same template as all the others, and I bring this up to about 5.6 million damage with Battle from Within. You can see here that when we combine these characters, we get this as our baseline stats, as well as this is just an arbitrary value that I put on the corner. It doesn't mean anything. So we can kind of see where these are going. And here's where we start going into formations. So after we've merged all these things above it, this is the original order I produced them in, and here's their stat values. Then here's what kind of average we're looking at as a party-wide average. This number is probably the most important for looking at overall party stats. So, for example, when I move everybody 1 to the left, everybody's stats go up. Well, I mean, as a whole team. The pit guard goes from -9 or -0.09 to -0.06. So, in general, the team gets stronger. So this kind of is a little note of what I do. This is the actual order of the team. And as we can see, we start running into some peculiarities. I start highlighting things I've noticed, such as the pit guard. He has the biggest influence on the team's power level. This one is where I'm thinking, hey, I'm on the right track with this. So this is the build that I ended with in Generation 1. But I still keep going. I still keep trying and trying to figure out things. And finally, here's our average of all the different formations, including how many times this person was at the end of a formation, to try to figure out, first off, what is a good number to end on. So anything above 53.08 that's my average for the multiple trials here, the 12 trials. And we'll notice that the Siege Automaton actually ends up fairly poor in this. he has been left on the end position many times, so I understand that may have factored into it, which is why I wrote that down there. Check out Generation 2. Generation 2 builds off of all the lessons we learned from Generation 1 and the 4 players before it. So we tried moving a few of the traits around to see what kind of effect we would have on this. So for example, I moved a Forsaken Swamp Dweller to fuse with the person with Singularity, and our Siege Automaton to fuse with the person carrying Pharaoh's Boon. All these indicate basically the things that I've moved. In the end, we ended up with a slightly less powerful version, but we only tried 5 times to find stats. And here's our overall average here. By this point, I'd already learned what I needed to know, and I was ready to move on. In Generation 3, I started rotating the artifacts a lot more thoroughly to see what kind of impact that might have, since we can see that formation already plays a difference in just how many millions of hit points you get. So we start with this, no equipped items, and then we start slapping on an item and moving them around and seeing if that changes anything. Here's where I learned that enemy has Ruby Attunement, and it doubles my hit points by a great deal. So this Solace actually doesn't matter. When I added Solace here, that was way too many hit points. So I ran it again with another Solace down here, same as number 5. So these are the actual stats. These are the actual values. And so this is basically I go from 35.45 stats to 70.80. That is pretty much double right there. So you can kind of see all my results here. The best one I've come up with after all of these generations is this one with 56.58 stats. So if you were looking for sheer damage and sheer value, you could go with this one if you didn't want to change any of the traits, which I probably would if I needed more stats. I would probably toss out a couple other things, such as Hate and Other Triumphs. That is more for clearing random trash monsters. For fighting a boss, I can put something else there. 56.58 was the best value I could get. I wanted to see what else I could do and what else I could insert, so I started comparing for Generation 4, what other traits I could sneak in, because I really wanted Shadow Bulwark in there. But that was a risk, and losing Big Boned does affect greatly how many stats I had. So I start comparing, and to do that I needed to figure out what the best personality combinations were that would result in the optimal point value for growth. While we do know that the Ruby Paragon will end up with the Pit Guard, I was lacking in attack creatures. So I might want, for example, the Angelic Voidlord to merge with the Elder Sphinx or the Sanctus Temperantius. However, the Elder Sphinx ends up with the Siege Automaton, and the Sanctus Temperantius ends up with the Forsaken Swamp Dweller. And again, this is for me to try to optimize my attribute growth per level. So Generation 4 looks like this. This is essentially the build I'm running, Generation 4. I only end up with 2 trials with this before I come up to my conclusion. Remember, I've run many other formations before this, so I feel like I've learned things up to this point. If I need straight up power, I should go with, instead of this build here, Generation 3's number 14. But I am completely safe from indirect damage, but my stats are overall less impressive by a great deal. So I'm better for realms, but worse for bosses.